Hello, everybody, and welcome to the EMCC Global Provider Summit, and in particular, this session from Untapped AI, a case study looking at network coaching. My name is Wendy Strome. I'm the EMCC Global Accreditation Manager for UK, Ireland, Middle East and Africa, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Untapped AI here. I'd like to introduce Brendan O'Hara. Brendan is a co-founder of Untapped AI, and I'd also like to introduce Anima Akundi, who is a coach to executives, leaders and teams, also from Untapped AI. We're really looking forward to hearing from both of our panelists, particularly about the Untapped AI organisation. It's a fast-growing tech startup providing support for managers in their professional lives through an app. And basically, the app is augmented by AI to help people make the most of their professional self-development so that they can be as good as they possibly can be. So our session, our case study is network coaching as a powerful force for both sustainable behavioural and cultural change. So I'm delighted to hand over to Brendan. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you all for joining us today. It's great to see so many people. So the way we're going to run this is it's going to be quite an informal discussion rather than a presentation. So yeah, as Wendy says, we are a Untapped AI. I'm the CTO and co-founder. I'm joined by Anima here, who's on my right. Anima, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I am with Untapped as a coach or accelerator, as we call ourselves, and a supervisor, and really excited to share this space with you today.
Fantastic. So we actually a year ago we went through the accreditation process, and our methodology called networked coaching was accredited by the EMCC, and it was a really good worthwhile process for us because it made us document everything we do, and it helped us extract the essence of what we do. And the essence really comes down to our desire to help companies, not just individuals, but companies change their culture. So the responsibility that people have on not just improving their own or changing their own behavior, but changing the system within which they are working. And that's where the networked coaching comes from. It's people experiencing the same thing at the same time, and the ripple effect, which Anima will go into a little bit later. So what we're going to do is first of all, we're going to have two breakout rooms. The first one is going to be technology. So I'm going to give you a bit of food for thought before we go into breakout rooms to talk about how technology is changing the experience that is brought to coaching these days. And then we'll come back, we'll talk about what people were talking about. We'll do a bit of a feedback session. Then Anima will take over, and she will talk about how coaching is driving culture change. And we'll do that in a breakout room, and we'll come back. So I'm going to share my screen, a little Miro board. Jason, if you're here, you'll be impressed because Jason introduced us to Miro. So this is what we're talking about, the powerful force for sustainable behavioral and cultural change. What I'd like to show you is how technology is changing the coaching environment. So post-COVID, I mean, we have to take notice because COVID has changed coaching forever. There are 74% less face-to-face coaching sessions, and there's 58% increase in digital coaching. And I suppose we fall into the digital coaching. Our aim has always been to democratize coaching. And we've done that from the outset in a digital way. Now I'm talking tonight about three very, I suppose, bleeding edge technologies, which are going to be affecting coaching if it isn't already in wherever you are where you're on your own experience of coaching. The first one is AI, and AI is being used. We use it ourselves on our environment quite a lot. But AI has many different ways. It has many different technologies behind it. So one is it's very good at pattern matching. So a lot of the time it takes in many different data points and it pattern matches those, and it's used then to derive information or derive and predict what might happen in the future. I've seen coaching providers that are digital coaching providers that match coaches to their users using many data points fed in. I've seen them used to work out who should get coaching and what they should be working on. We use natural language processing. There's a very good example in Teams today where you can turn on a speaker coach, and the speaker coach will tell you the words that you are using, whether you are being a bit too casual, whether you are being informal, whether some of the words you are using might be a bit improper. They got picked, someone was talking in a professional conversation, in a mixed gender conversation, and the word guys came up as being perhaps inappropriate. The other areas where AI is being used is in visual cues. So you can actually visualize. We did this ourselves in a hackathon, where you can look at people's faces and work out what their expressions are, whether it's one of surprise or happiness, and even micro expressions. There's some very good companies out there that look at micro expressions. Their visual cues, though, tend to have diversity problems when it comes to making sure that it works for all faces and all cultures. Then it's used often for recommending, so recommending material content that you might want to use, and then predicting, so maybe predicting the effect on an organization of introducing a new system based on loads of different data points. A really interesting technology that can't be ignored is the metaverse. So the metaverse is a virtual environment, and virtual environments have existed for ages, particularly in gaming. I don't know whether you all have come across Citizens or something like that. It's about 20 years old. Used to use them using PCs or consoles or whatever, but they are becoming a lot more pervasive with AR and VR and in learning environments. And what it does is it gives you a bit more of an idea of a physical presence, and we might be able to look at body language. It's very difficult. If you look at Zoom now, all you get is a face. But you might, if in the metaverse, you might be able to get the whole body. You might get the experience of passing people and actually talking to people in an ad hoc way, as opposed to on Zoom. A really good example of where this has worked before, and this is back in 2014. Narendra Modi, they did when he was campaigning, he got a hologram of himself and he projected it all across India, and he was able to get in front of millions and millions of people instead of just hundreds of thousands of people, as if he were there right in front of them. And they reckon that is why he won that election, is because he was able to be present in front of so many people. The leader in metaverse at the moment is Facebook. And I thought I'd show you this little video that I found earlier today.
Over the last year and a half, a lot of us who work in offices have gone remote. And while I miss seeing the people I work with, I think remote work is here to stay for a lot of people. So we're going to need better tools to work together. Let's take a look at what working in the metaverse will be like. Imagine if you could be at the office without the commute. You would still have that sense of presence, shared physical space, those chance interactions that make your day all accessible from anywhere. Now imagine that you have your perfect work setup and you can actually do more than you could in your regular work setup. And on top of all that, you can keep wearing your favorite sweatpants.
Looking good. Let's get together real quick for a debrief.
I'm free now. Let's jump in. Hi.
Hey.
So what do we think?
I think it's ready.
Great.
I'll prep it for the presentation.
All right. Good luck.
Imagine a space where you can tune out distractions and focus on the task at hand. And when you're ready to share what you've been working on, you can present it as if you're right there with the team.
Wait, where's Mark?
I think he's in the middle of something.
I'm sure you all think that's a bit creepy, all right. But I'm sure if you go back, if you were able to look forward to today, 10 years ago, you would have thought everyone having looking at their phones every other minute of the day would be odd. And anyway, the third technology is Web3. Now, Web3 is all about using the blockchain. It's intended to help people own their own data, and this is something we're very conscious of, people owning their own data, particularly the data that we hold, which is, their own coaching data, and the history of people on our platform over a period of time, and knowing that data is really secure. So the blockchain is like it's your data is held over a large number of computers, and it's not intended to be owned by any one company, and that's where Web3 comes from. It's about at the moment there are many big tech companies that own an awful lot of our data, and we don't know what they're doing with it. And the likes of Cambridge Analytica comes to mind, and the persuasion of people to vote in certain ways. Now, the whole idea of Web3 is that your data belongs to you. It's housed on many different computers around the world. If one computer dies, or if one storage mechanism dies, it's still on loads of others and it won't be destroyed. It is also, it can only be changed if it's changed on all of them, and that is only changeable by the data owner. So it's quite an important technology, and I quite often think of this as being perhaps a way of storing one's history and even certification. If the EMCC certified us, that there is a record on our history that the EMCC has certified us, and that it can't be, someone else can't say they got certified when they didn't. So I think of it as a bit of an experience ledger. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a bit of food for thought before we go into a breakout room about technology. So the first breakout room is how can tech improve and accelerate the coaching experience? And if you can think of this as being, so I'd love to learn here too. And this is all about, it's all learning. So it's how might technology be used to improve the user experience, the coaching experience, or even accelerate the coaching experience? So if we all go out into breakout rooms for 20 minutes, if one person in each breakout room could act as a gatherer of the most important points, then we'll come together afterwards and just share a couple of those points. and see what people were talking about. Hi all, welcome back. I hope you had some really enthralling conversations there. We definitely did in the main room. I'd love to, so I think we'll spend about 10 minutes just to get have an open conversation here of what people felt, what was brought up that was interesting in your groups. Who would like to start?
This is Alex Jungerman. So our group had a very good discussion, especially because one of the participants is already piloting a very nice experiment with metaverse and artificial intelligence. So we inundated that poor soul with tons of questions. But I also brought up something that I think we should tap more often. That when we talk about technology, we usually go straight to metaverse, artificial intelligence, and Web 3.0, while we forget that we are already surrounded by technology in our coaching practice. Zoom, email, coaching platforms that help us automate our day-to-day tasks, email. So that's all technology. And of course, there's this kind of myth of, coaching is not immune of being a replaceable profession. So coaching will be done by robots in the future, which I 100% counter, because I think we should see technology as an ally, not as an enemy. That's my take of the conversation.
Absolutely agree. I that's one thing that we've found all the time is we have a mixture of it's human aided technology, really. It's the technology that we're trying to build is technology that enhances and supercharges the experience rather than takes it over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Accelerates.
Brendan,
Yeah.
may I ask you something?
Sure.
You mentioned about human-aided technology. And what about technology-aided humanity?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's that too.
So the next room.
What's the difference though between human aided and if you flip it on, what's the difference? Is it Ale?
The way I understand is one is the technology being assisted by humans. So basically, any technology, it's by nature, the way I understand, aided by human beings, because we either program, we operate, we input data. And the other thing, which is honestly what I'm most interested is technology aided humanity. So our humanity being aided by technology devices, software. That's what we are talking here. So how I can be a better coach, a better human being with the use of technology. That's what I mean. That's the difference I'm making here when I flip.
Yeah. So I quite often think of I don't want to be the talker here too much, so I didn't want to go into it too much. But I do think as a coach, you have experience of a number of experiences that you've had, but if you could bring all the data together of everyone who has a coach who's on our platform at the same time, that one person can be supercharged by all of the experience if the data is used right, using recommendations, recommendations of questions, of things like that. You're supercharging human.
Brendan, I almost feel like it's the equivalent of a carpenter with a hammer. You know, in its simplest form, it's another tool. In this case, we're going from the hammer to the 3D printer. It's just a more sophisticated tool that the professional can lean into. And in our group, and sorry to jump in, I even questioned your question, because are we really helping the coaching process, or are we helping leadership development, growth, whatever it is that the end goal is? We're helping that process be more effective and maybe accelerate that. And coaching is a tool along with the technology that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. it's accelerating the end goal. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was hoping that someone else would summarize our session. I posted a question I have in general in the chat box, but what I'm wondering is not just using coaching technology as a tool to deepen coaching or human growth, but I'm going a step further and thinking in terms of making sure that we don't lose our humanity and keep emotional intelligence, empathy, and all of those things in the game as coaches. So using best elements of face-to-face and technology to come up with synergetic approaches. I don't know. I mean, that's my blurb.
Yeah, no, I think if that is lost, then that's technology not working.
Okay, in our group, we covered quite a few angles, but what I'm taking from it is that Annette, for example, mentioned that young generation are not that ready to accept coaching, and technology probably would be helping it. Young people do accept technology quite readily. And so coaching could be encouraged through that channel. Then another thing I think was quite interesting, Jed mentioned that he's worried about technology losing confidentiality, through coaching. So those two aspects, I think that to me were quite interesting, and I would like you, Brendan, to say something about it.
Well, I interestingly, the next Gen Z is now a third of the population, and between Gen Z and millennials, I believe more than 30% of the workforce is already in those two groups. And as you say, they take up technology. They are looking forward to the next big thing in technology. They're big. There's a lot of gaming they've grown up with this sort of technology in gaming in just everyday life. So these technologies will be accepted, and I think it's a good way of. I mean, it's a good way of getting access to those people, so I completely agree there. Regarding the privacy, I mean, it's always going to be a question, and it's a question that we get a lot. But it's interesting once people get used to the digital environment, they do open up. The digital environment allows you to be anywhere, at home, at work, commuting, or whatever, and people seem to get used to it because they feel it is sufficiently private, but it obviously is down to the technology. It's down to making sure that technology is very secure and constantly tested. So, most coaching companies would go through an enormous number of procurement processes, which tests this all the time. And you have to have various certifications to make sure that you are maintaining that level of security with your data. We do pen tests all the time, penetration tests, to make sure that the external can't get in and get our data or get your data. But I think, as I was saying with Web3, hopefully, that's going to improve people's belief that their data is more and more secure.
So we have a question from Shirley. Do you think coaches will eventually be replaced by AI?
Well, that's a good question. They're already very good, at least there are coaching solutions out there that are just AI driven. Whether or not they are successful or not, they're definitely getting a reasonable amount of investment. A good one is Wobot. They've had a lot of investment, but they only use CBT. So CBT, I mean, you have to believe that CBT works, and CBT is very cognitive behavioral therapy. It's quite amenable to machine learning. It's quite amenable to getting questions, answers, and so forth. But whether you believe that works well or not is I don't know. And I think that will improve, but I don't think that people will ever feel as accountable to AI as they do to a human. And I think that's our experience anyway.
And we uphold the combination, the power in the use of the two. But here's Anna. Anna has her hand up.
Just to follow up on what was said, and that came up in our group also, it definitely has to be a complementary to a human coach or human. Definitely number one is a human. And I'll give you one little example. I have a client, which is about 20 years old, and obviously he's into technology, and there was no talking to him to say, can you please write some notes or take some points, write by hand? Very apprehensive, and we wouldn't do it for a long time. There was an issue about timing and planning, which led to anxiety and so on. Don't want to go into detail, but what happened, magic happened when he had nicely drawn up an Excel spreadsheet first, all what he wanted to do, which was beautiful. And I have to say, it was very impressive. Then he found an app that actually will put everything with timing and color coded. It was too complex even to look at, but he understood that. So he was happy with that. This was going on for about 3-4 sessions while I've seen him. Then I asked him, if it still doesn't work, if you still can't get it, let's try it maybe my way this time. And magic happened when he started writing with his hand. So my point is that there is technology absolutely useful, and I am eager to know more about it and test it myself. But when you put the human element, story to it, maybe that expression of, the feeling, the knowledge, the visual, you put it through yourself by doing something with your hands. We all know that it actually is more effective. So the transformation happened. Now what we do, we still use technology, use WhatsApp, but when he has his little plan made, written by hand, he takes a screenshot and sends it to me. That's when the accountability happens. So I absolutely agree with you, Brent, an accountability aspect. You can't fool AI or so. I think they're much clever and much faster than human beings. But if you have that understanding that we still can be more accountable and reach the goal faster where we want to be by communicating with humans, I'd say I will argue for that more by only my own experience. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Very good story.
Yeah.
Great story.
Right.
Do we have any more questions, or should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, thanks. One of the things I was just curious about is coaching is obviously a broad discipline, and there's many types of coaching, one-on-one coaching, group coaching, team coaching, life coaching, et cetera, et cetera. Are we talking about all of this, or is this more narrowly focused where you see applying this technology?
I'm talking very specifically about executive coaching, because that's the sphere that we work in, but I don't see why it can't work. And we actually do, we are working towards a group coaching solution as well. So it definitely is intended to be apply for us, from our perspective anyway, one-to-one and one-to-many, and with the aim of it being a lot more accessible, so that you can reach a lot more people. And I think, Anima, when we move on to the next part, really our aim is to democratize coaching and to do that by with a blend of technology and human, so that we can make it, get down to middle management rather than just, the people that companies can currently afford it. But I don't see why it couldn't work for life coaching, for other ways of coaching too.
Yeah. And just to follow up, you mentioned group coaching. Do you also see it evolving into team coaching?
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's all about the data that is being collected, and if you are AI in particular, it's all about the data that it is based on. We are very honing in on the executive coaching side of it, and then the group coaching side of it. If we went into team coaching, we'd be collecting that data and tuning it to that. So it works on the data, the ecological validity of the data, and what you're trying to achieve. So absolutely could work for team coaching if that was your objective.
Be interesting if it was, in team coaching, we often talk about co-coaching, and you could have a human and an AI co-coaching together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And absolutely.
Well, I think we need to now move to the next section, because I think this is now going to get even juicier as we start to think and use some of your thoughts that you've gathered in the breakout rooms about technology, as we now shift to looking at culture change, which is the other thing that, or the area that we tend to double edge, the technology and how do we impact change in the whole culture. So our question, we're doing it a bit different this time around. We're sending you into the breakout room first to talk about your experience about how coaching can and has accelerated culture change in the organizations that you've had the privilege to coach someone in. What has worked and what hasn't worked as we try to impact whole organizations and changing culture. And so this is what we'd like you to discuss in the second breakout room, and then come back, share, your stories, and then we will give you also our networked coaching approach to impacting culture change, which is a combination of the technology and the human aspect as we know it.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back. So maybe we can have a couple of representatives from the rooms, a couple of rooms just sharing, what did you come up with when it comes to impact of coaching on culture change?
I think just 2 points that I'd like to mention from what we talked about. And the last one I thought was the most powerful, in that unless you get the value proposition around coaching clearly understood, it's not going to be, it can't be adopted, because there are lots of misapprehensions around what coaching is. In quite a lot of traditional organizations, it's linked with performance and performance improvement. So if you want it to be around organizational change, you have to make the case for what coaching is, and therefore how it can then affect that change.
Yeah.
That was one, and the other one was, the really old chestnut of, if it's not being role modeled from the top down, it doesn't matter how great your strategy and your comms are. It's very difficult to it's dissonant, isn't it? If you're saying how marvelous coaching is as a leadership approach, and it's not being role modeled by your senior leaders. I think those are the two that were in my head, but please speak up if I've missed another salient one.
Those are two very good ones. Shall we move to, if there's no other person from her groups, Matt Jackson had his hand up.
We had some similar sentiments to what Julia just shared. But we also talked about how, culture is the way we do things, and the way we do things in culture is constantly evolving. Whether we intervene with coaching or not, culture will change over time. And so one of the things we talked about was the idea that coaching can bring intention, focus, and potentially acceleration to that change, as opposed to just letting the natural course of change take place. We also talked about, I think Julia may have touched on this, but coaching brings awareness and how each of us contribute to the culture and how we do things. And so once we're aware of that, we can make adjustments to adopt behaviors that support the culture we want, and maybe pull back on behaviors that aren't supporting the culture that we want.
So
Tatiana, and maybe I think there's Tatiana maybe wanted to add to that. So I'll throw it to her if she wants to jump in.
We had really interesting discussion, and our profession exists because culture changed. It's my first thesis. And if you just observe how dramatically changed life and social practices since 19th century, 20th century, and at the end of 20th century, coaching started to be more and more common. And now our profession started to change culture. If we speak more broadly, not only about organizational culture, and we, in our profession, the key point is presence, awareness, and when we bring such kind of communication in society, it's dramatically changed society. And step by step, our profession really change culture. Because sometimes people firstly meet such kind of communication with equal partnership only in coaching, supervision, or mentoring. And I think it's treasure that we have that code of ethics. We have our competences, which move us more and more deeply for such kind of communication with equality and with partnership, with deepness to the human being. I belong to ontological coaching, and I know that integrity and to see in another person who came human being, it's the key and of our profession. And it means no assumption about this person, no judgments, to have just white screen about this person, no classification. And because of it, we dramatically change culture. It's my opinion. And I think all of us deeply agree with this. If we just look through what kind of communication now we have and compare with the time when we start our profession maybe. And the more we go, the more interesting and more deep opportunities we have.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Tatiana. Lastly, let's just hear from Wilfred, who's been so patient with his hand up.
Thank you. Okay, so we had 3 examples of how coaching can accelerate culture change, and one of them was like in this organization, the introduction of coaching was used to retain admin staff because it helped them to be able to progress their career in ways that made them not to just leave the company, and that way they were encouraged to get in, and that helped retention. And they realized that the senior managers were embracing coaching, which was really put in to help the junior admin members to really grow and stay. And so, but the senior members embracing coaching meant that it was easy for the coaching to get into the organization as a culture, because you need managers to foster cultural change or culture change. So the second one was just the general peer group mentality that comes from team coaching and group coaching, which, you bring people in an organization that are remote, and because there's a virtual team coaching session, they still feel as part of the group, right? That was another example. And the third one was just the idea that technology and coaching work together to democratize coaching and making it more accessible to everyone, which fosters culture change in an organization. So just those 3 points summary. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that's great feedback. We're going to go straight into a brief example. Brendan, you want to share that slide we have? Just to give you some insight as to how at Untapped AI, we are using technology and networked coaching to, some of the words I've heard you say, top down, we're going bottom up in terms of accountability. We are using the network of our client or organization, the person who is being coached, our coaches or accelerators and supervisors to harvest using the data that we input into the system or pull out as insights from the system, and giving feedback to the organization of how their population, human population, is feeling, thinking, experiencing work in this organization, and feeding that upwards or across. So if you think about having a spotlight from coach to coachee, we're talking about doing it more as a floodlight. So the amount of people we get onto our platform, starting the same coaching experience with the same methodology of really, how are you doing in this ecosystem in which you exist? Whatever the client or organization is trying to change in their culture, whether they want to be more focused on the person, their human population, they want to be more team oriented, they want the outputs to be for every member of their organization to take responsibility, if that's the notion. So we come in and we will be working with not one coach or the exec team of 5. We spread that into a floodlight so that we can have the ripple effect of feedback. So we provide this safe and rigorous company-wide coaching structure. So that feedback, insights, which we extract from the coaching with the help of AI, I think Brendan mentioned earlier that we really look at language and we connect, patterns of speech that will really surface different aspects of whoever is being coached and how they're feeling about whatever topic that is being addressed. And we feed this back to the organization, but then also back to each person on our platform. So you get this collaborative wave of change. And we found that this has provided just increased impact on the culture, obviously, but also you notice a difference between those who engage in the coaching. There's so many more of them giving that feedback, being ambassadors. We're used to, in the coaching speak, to have, somebody said it already, leading by example. So you go back as an ambassador, really championing what coaching has done. But imagine a wave, a floodlight of feedback, where if you're not being coached, you suddenly start to think, I want change. I want to grow in my courage. I want to be able to have a voice, just like not one person, but that whole 100 people who seem to be changing right before our very eyes. So it increases agility, innovation. There's many more people who feel, I guess, encouraged to try rather than apprehensive. Yeah. And so very much data-driven. Accountability is from the bottom up. So we're feeding back to the organization what their people are experiencing and saying about being able to work in that organization. That's a really short nutshell, of how we're combining data, extracting it, giving feedback, but also working with the wave, the ripple effect of big change. Somebody's asking, how do we give the feedback? We have obviously not predetermined, but periodic meetings with organization to give them that insights that we capture as coaches from our coaching with the consent of our users. They get the same feedback, actually, that, hey, this is what we're noticing. This is what also colleagues are experiencing the freedom of being able to speak up with courage. They're noticing their ability to, actually pinpoint where the blocks are in their system and actually speaking about this. So everyone gets the same feedback to work with.
Very good, Anima. Yeah, so a lot of data, there's a lot of data that is being collected, and we can extract from that the core context. It is all completely aggregated and very high level, and that from those insights,
anonymized,
completely anonymized, aggregated data, which everyone is aware of before they even start. This is about changing the system, and you never pull data out that would not determine a group of people of less than 10 people, to make sure that it is as anonymized as it can be.
And it's part of the contracting. So at the contracting phase, everybody is aware of what is going to take place. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you guys. I just wanted to give a couple of minutes warning that we do need to wrap up the session, and I'm going to ask you for some reflections. So people, could you hold your questions? We're going to move into a networking session afterwards, and there'll be opportunity then to ask some more questions of Brendan and Anima. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Wendy. Brendan, you want to remove the screen, or?
Yeah, I'll remove the screen. I just thought if you want to contact us, there's our email addresses. Feel free to reach out, but I'll let the conversation continue.
Thank you so much. I'd like to say a huge thank you to Brendan and Anima for sharing such a wonderful insight into their work at Untapped AI. And I feel that I've been through a real education process. I'm sure there are many of us in the room who feel the same. So big thank you. I would just like to ask our session hosts just to give us a brief 30-second reflection on the session, really for us to use as a sound bite before we move into our networking session, which I'll introduce next. So could I ask you for a reflection, please, Brendan and Anima?
Yep, of course. So I thought it was a really good session. I thought there was a lot of really good, interesting feedback that came about technology and people's nervousness around where it's going to go, and whether or not it's technology that is going to enable or take over. And definitely our intention is enablement and acceleration. And then finally into the culture area, the accountability, the using the data to increase the accountability at the people that we have on the platform is what's interesting about trying to change the culture, and people being interested in living in a company, working in a company where that sort of thing is intended, is what has been bought in. You've got a greater chance of changing culture. I really enjoyed the conversation with everyone here. I thought some really good thoughts came out of it from both different perspectives. So I really enjoyed it. Anima, what did you think?
This was excellent. For me, I think my takeaway is just how well placed we are as coaches. I loved what Tatiana was sharing about our ethical, framework in which we operate, and how, for me, that is the platform on which we can actually build with AI and technology to enhance already what is an effective and trusted way of having impact and change, individuals and with groups. So I was really excited to be here. I think it has also made me realize how many more such conversations we need to have, sharing our insights, knowledge, thoughts, questions, because together we have more power in making sustainable change as we share these ideas. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Brendan and Anima. I think we'll have at least another 20 minutes or so for those who can stay for a more informal sort of networking session.